The number one ranked Georgia Bulldogs came out of the gate swinging with a statement performance against number 14 Clemson, absolutely abusing the Tigers by a score of 34-3 and outgaining Clemson 447 yards to 189 yards in the process. So how did the Dogs do it and what does it all mean? Let's break it down.
We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? I'm Tyler, and this is the Glory UGA podcast, brought to you by our great friends at MyBookie. And if you are new to this channel, first off, welcome. Thank you guys for being here. But we've been doing this podcast for 10 years now on the audio side of things. We've kind of resisted doing the video content, but we've had a lot of requests from listeners over the years. So here we are, bringing our brand of in-depth, hardcore Georgia football talk to YouTube, to you guys here on this channel. So if that's what you're looking for, if you are a diehard Georgia fan looking for coverage designed for you, make sure to subscribe to this channel right now and like the video, comment, and check out the Glory UGA podcast for a whole lot more coverage of Georgia football just like this. But all right, guys, let's get to this beatdown that Georgia put on Clemson on Saturday. And there are a ton of different angles that we could approach this from. But what I'm going to do today is give you my top 10 thoughts coming out of that big week 1 victory over Clemson. I'm going to start at number 1 and we'll work our way down to number 10. Coming in at number 1, my biggest takeaway from this game is just simply that Georgia is the best team in the country. I felt that was the case coming to the year. The margins might be a little smaller this year with the transfer portal additions that teams like Ole Miss have made and Ohio State going all in. Teams like that, Texas now coming over to the SEC. There are a bunch of other really good teams out there in the country that could win national title. But if Georgia plays its A game, I felt coming into the season that Georgia would win every game on its schedule. We did our preseason predictions episode last Monday ahead of week 1. And on that episode, I put out there, call me a homer if you want, that I'm predicting Georgia to go 12-0. I put off the helmet schedule, I got it right here next to me, and I pick every single game that is going to be played by SEC teams this year. And when I pick the games, Georgia could absolutely lose a game this year. Sure, I felt that it's possible we might lose 2. It's not out of the question, but it's hard to predict, okay, it's going to be this game. It's going to be that game, because when I look on paper, I felt like Georgia was the best team in the country coming into the year and should win all of its games if we play up to our standard every game. Now, that's the question. Will we play up to our standard? That's always the question. We'll see, but it might be an overreaction. Call it an overreaction if you want to. Call me a homer if you want to. But I saw enough to go ahead and confirm my pre-existing beliefs. Call it confirmation bias if you want to. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I saw enough out there on Saturday to tell me that I was right coming to the season, that Georgia is the best team in the country. Beating a top 15 Clemson team. That didn't really look like a top 15 team out there on Saturday, but I still posit that Georgia had a lot to do with that. I still think Clemson is one of the 2 best teams in the ACC this year. I think it's them and Miami. Miami looked obviously a lot better with the way they beat down Florida in Gainesville. Right now, they've probably got to be the favorite to win the ACC, but I still think this is a really good Clemson team that could easily go 10-2, maybe 11-1 if things really fall their way the rest of the season. Look at their schedule, guys. Okay, you got Florida State on the road, but what is Florida State right now? They play tonight. We'll see what happens there against Boston College, but they certainly did not look the part week 0 over in Ireland against Georgia Tech. Virginia Tech, I thought was a team that could be a sleeper that could maybe make their way into the ACC title game this year. But man, after that loss to Vandy, maybe Vandy's better than we thought. Week 1, we don't really know. It can play tricks on you. But they certainly did not look like an ACC top contender. And yes, Clemson has to go to Blacksburg. But, again, you lose to Vandy on the road, and, all of a sudden, is Virginia Tech just not the team that maybe I thought they could be coming into the year? So I still think it's a very good Clemson team. At the least, I think we can say about this Clemson team that it has an elite side of the ball. Their secondary has some questions, but I think that defense is going to be a top 10 caliber defense all year. Their offense still has major issues, and that's what I got wrong about my prediction this game. I thought Georgia would win and win comfortably, but I thought that Clemson would find a way to cover. I think my prediction was Georgia 30, Clemson 20, and I just thought that, even though Clemson was not good offensively last year, I thought it would be just natural progression this year in year 2 under Garrett Riley as their offensive coordinator. Okay, Klubnik, who was not good last year. At best, Klubnik was average as grits in 2023, but he's coming into his second year as a starter, has a lot of experience now. A lot of his weapons were banged up most of last year, so now that they're back healthy, that you figure that would also give that offense a boost. But I saw basically the exact same offense on Saturday that I saw from Clemson all of last year. All the same issues that plagued them once again. You have a quarterback that struggles with processing, that gets sped up easily, is very erratic with his accuracy. Yeah, can put a ball on the money here or there. Made a really nice throw to Antonio Williams. Dalen Everett had great coverage in the first half on the ball, but it was just a perfectly dropped ball. Dropped it right in the bucket. He has the ability. And that's the thing about Cade Klubnik. If I'm a Clemson fan, which, man, that guy would drive me nuts. Because you look at him out there, the physical tools are there. He should be good, but he's just not, at least not consistently. So he's got the erratic accuracy, does some things with his legs. We were able to bottle him up for the most part there, trying to run the football. So he was still pretty much the same guy. The offensive line, yes, very veteran and played a lot of football for them and good, but not an elite offensive line. They were healthier at receiver, but still didn't have a ton of playmakers. Antonio Williams made a couple plays, but are still just lacking general playmakers in the passing game. Still don't really have much of a vertical passing game to speak of. Part of that's the receivers issue, part of that's the quarterback issue. And really, even though it's year 2 now in Garrett Riley's system, it was just the same stale, conservative approach to game playing offensively that we saw from them the majority of last year. So I know the Clemson offense was not great, but that defense was elite and is elite. They gave us hell, guys. They gave us all we could handle there for at least a full half. I would argue maybe 2.5 to maybe 3/4 of that game. I know that we had some big plays, some explosive plays in the second half. That was really the fourth quarter, that 40-yard run that Nate Frazier broke off, the big play by London Humphreys. Those are plays that happened in the fourth quarter. That defense, they kept them in that game. And that's where I was wrong. I thought their offense would be better. I felt their defense would keep them in the game because I respected them that much. But I thought that their offense would take at least somewhat of a step forward this year and be able to score enough points against a Georgia defense that was very banged up coming into this game and was even more banged up during the game, losing guys like Michael Williams going out, Warren Brinson, who missed most of fall camp but was playing in this game. I think he played 3 snaps and then he's out. So I thought Clemson might find a way to score a touchdown or 2 and keep this game tight going to the fourth quarter where Georgia would pull away. But I got that wrong. This Clemson's offense was just absolutely no better. But still, this is a good Clemson team with an elite defense that has a chance to contend for an ACC title, could go 10-2, 11-1. I still think that's very much on the table for this Clemson team when you look at their schedule the rest of the way. And what did Georgia do to that team? Oh, just beat them 34-3, outgained them 447 yards to 189 yards, 7.5 yards per play for the Dogs to 3.6 for Clemson, more than doubled them up there. And did all of that, dominated Clemson, a top 15 team, a team that I think could win 10 games this year, dominated them without our starting running back and Trevor Etienne, without Roderick Robinson, who was probably going to be one of our top 2 or 3 running backs coming into the year. Defense, just a host of injuries. Warren Brinson played 3 snaps, was out within the first 2 drives of the game. Michael Williams goes out. Janelle Aguero was a surprise omission, did not play in this game, dealing with an injury that he suffered last week in the lead up to the game. Caused us to have to move around a lot of bodies, a lot of different guys in the secondary. We already knew no Jordan Hall, no Xavier McLeod. Those guys were not going to play. We were incredibly thin. We were paper thin on the defensive line against a team that has a really veteran offensive line and I think a top 10 to 15 running back in the country in Phil Moffitt and a quarterback that struggles to throw the ball consistently but is a good athlete, can pose a threat with his legs. And they tried to use him like that, but we were able to, despite all those injuries, despite all those guys that weren't playing, Dylan Bell going out in the game as well, we still dominated that team. Dominated them. 34-3, 447 yards to 189 yards. And look, again, there are a lot of really good teams out there. Well, maybe not a lot. There are some really good teams out there that when we play them on any given day, if we don't play up to our standard and they play well, they can knock us off. I think Texas can do that. Alabama, they can definitely do that. Ole Miss, maybe. Ohio State down the road, yes. Oregon down the road, yes, if we don't play well. But I will still maintain, after what I saw on Saturday, call it confirmation bias if you want to, I even more so believe now that if we play our A game, if we play to our standard, it doesn't matter what the opponent on the other sideline does. Georgia will win the football game because we're just better. We have a more talented roster. We have the deeper roster. We have the better player at the most important position, which of course is quarterback. We have the better coaching staff, all of it. It's just a matter of, can Georgia play to our standard on a week-by-week basis? Because there are some landmines on the schedule. We all know that. The margins are smaller this year than they have been in years past because we have more teams. And if we don't play well, if we play like we did against Auburn last year on the road or against Missouri in 2022 on the road, well, a team like Texas, if we play like that, they're going to beat us. A team like Alabama on the road, if we play like that, they're going to beat us. But again, if we play like we play to our standard, what I saw yesterday just confirmed to me that we are absolutely what I thought we were, the best team in the country in 2024. All right, number 2 on my list here, and this made a run for number 1. You could certainly have had this number 1, but I want to go with a bigger picture, look at the game with that first takeaway, with that first thought. But number 2, a star is born. Nate Frazier. I came on this very show. I sat right here in this very seat, in this very room, about a month ago, after I had a chance to take in one of Georgia's fall camp practices on a Sunday, and I came in and I told you guys there were 2 players, more than anyone else, that stood out there at that practice to me. Number 1 on offense, Nate Frazier. Number 2 on defense, it was Jaylen Walker. And both those guys were lights out. They made me look like a genius, because I'm not really, but they made me look like I was. They made me right, because out there when he got a chance, he get many opportunities early in the game, but when Nate Frazier was put in the game and was given the football, he made an immediate impact. Branson Robinson, guys, look, still very much coming back from the injury. I thought when I saw him at practice, he looked really good, but they weren't in full pads yet, so it's tough to fully tell. But and he still looked really good considering coming back, the injury that he's coming back from, but he's still not quite back 100% to like pre-injury Branson, and that's okay. It's going to take some time. He's got to learn to trust that knee a little bit. I don't think that he was playing as fast as we've seen Branson Robinson play in the past. I don't think he was sticking his nose up in holes when they present themselves like I've seen Branson Robinson do in the past. But Nate Frazier, when he got the ball late in the first half, you saw that. You saw this guy willing to stick his nose up there, plant his foot, and get vertical, and he was running angry with reckless abandon. He's got that twitch, man, that no one that we've had at running back has had since DeAndre Swift. And we've had some really good backs, right? Like I know James Cook, if people want to push back and say, well, did you forget James Cook played for Georgia? No, I didn't forget that. I just think Nate Frazier's a different level. I think he's going to be the best back that we've had since DeAndre Swift. I said that back a month ago when I came back from that practice, and I know that sounded kind of hyperbolic, and maybe I was getting caught up in the moment. Maybe I was just getting ahead of myself, but no, I stand by. And you saw, guys, I kept telling people for the last month, people were like, man, like come on, man, like this guy isn't taking a snap for Georgia. And I'm like, well, just wait, man, just wait until you see. And now we've all seen it. So he goes 11 carries for 83 yards, 7.5 yards per carry. And again, instant impact when he got in there. And you can just tell, guys, he moves differently. He's just different. Trevor Etienne is going to be awesome for us. Branson's going to get better and better and better. Cash Jones is a good running back for us. We have a really, really strong running back room, which is a room that, about 2 months ago, I was concerned might be the least talented room that we had on the roster, at least in terms of experience, right? Like I know what Trevor Etienne is, but Branson, we didn't know at the time. And Roger Robinson, you feel good about, but still kind of inexperienced. You have a bunch of freshmen behind them. But now that running back room might be one of the strengths of the entire team. So absolutely Nate Frazier is going to be a star for us. Will he start for us on Saturday against Tennessee Tech? Probably not. Kirby tried to downplay the game he had in the post-game press conference, which is it's classic Kirby. Like that's his trademark. That's what he does. He wants to keep these guys down to earth. He wants to make sure the other guys that are veterans that have been around and put their blood, sweat, and tears in the program, they get their proper flowers as well. And they deserved it. Branson did some good things. Cash Jones did some really good things for us. Had a really nice touchdown run. But I will stand by my statement I made a month ago now. This guy, Nate Frazier, is the best running back on this team. I think he's the best running back that we've had since DeAndre Swift. I truly do believe that. And I love Etienne. I love Branson. Really like Cash Jones. I think Roger Robinson has value. But Frazier is just different. And that guy showed everyone, game one, what he is all about. And he's just going to get better from here. So we'll see how many carries he gets against Tennessee Tech, but he's one of those guys, like, you're not going to be able to keep him off the field. You're just not going to be able to keep the guy off the field because he is a straight-up difference maker. We've had a lot of good backs in recent years, a lot of really good backs. I don't think we've had a difference maker of this caliber in a while, in about 4 or 5 years. So very, very excited about Nate Frazier, and he showed everyone what he can do on Saturday against a really, really good Clemson defense. And the other guy that I mentioned that I saw at practice that really stood out to me was Jaylen Walker. And that was not a surprise to me. This is a guy that I've been screaming about all offseason, had to be on the field more consistently. I love our coaching staff. I think it's the best coaching staff in the country. I trust Kirby and those guys almost implicitly. I truly do. They know far more about football than I could ever dream about knowing. But I know enough to know that Jaylen Walker only playing 12 snaps against Alabama in the SEC title game was borderline coaching malpractice. That guy was our most disruptive defender, and he only played 12 snaps in the biggest game of the year. And when he was on the field, all he did was make a difference, was pressuring quarterback, was getting sacks on Jalen Milroe. The guy is a game-changing player. He just got to be on the field. Now, I understand it was easier said than done last year because he was kind of a tweener. He's playing inside linebacker, he's playing outside linebacker. He's kind of a little too small to play full-time jack linebacker. So where do we put him? So we just kind of defaulted and said, all right, we're just going to play this guy as like a third down pass rushing specialist. But this year, we had to make a concerted effort. It was incumbent upon our coaching staff to find a way to get this man on the field more. He's too talented, too much of a difference maker to only play, I believe, about 27% of our snaps last year. Again, only 12 snaps. And that SEC title game against Alabama, almost unforgivable stuff. But in this game, that was not a problem. I'm going to give our coaching staff a lot of credit here. They saw the same things that we saw, guys. Again, they know more than me. They're smarter than me. They do this stuff for a living. I'm just an amateur guy here on YouTube with this channel. But they know that it was their job to get this guy on the field. And Kirby even said in the post-game press conference, he said that we had to get uncomfortable in finding ways to get him on the field. And what he means by that is this is a different kind of player than we've ever had. So we had to use him in different ways. We had to get creative and find ways to use him, get him on the field in ways that are different than we've gotten other guys on the field that have like maybe a similar physical profile. So give him credit there. But he played 51% of our defensive snaps since Clemson, again, compared to 27% of our defensive snaps last regular season. And the man delivered just like I knew he would if given that opportunity. He led the team not only in sacks, he had a sack and a half, not only in tackles for loss, also led the team in tackles. We know what that guy can do rushing the passer. I mean, he's a proven commodity in that regard. He had nothing to prove to me there. That's why I thought the guy had to be on the field. Now, one thing Jaylen had to do to put himself in a position to be on the field more consistently is he had to become more of an every down type player. He settled in an inside linebacker. He had to be able to defend the run more effectively than he has in the past. And give that guy credit. He has taken that challenge. He's gotten bigger, gotten stronger. He's playing some inside linebacker, playing jack linebacker. He has that positional versatility. We're using him all over the field. And not only did he have a sack and a half, big plays there, but he also in the second half, made some big plays, setting the edge from that jack linebacker position, was setting the edge and making the play on the ball carrier. That's something we struggled with last year. We'd have a guy like Chaz Chandler, who was great at closing on the pulling guard, like setting that edge, but just wasn't making plays on the ball carrier at the same time. Well, Jaylen was doing both of them because he's that kind of guy. He's just different. And I thought he played absolutely lights out, a straight up disruptive force for us, just like he was a year ago. And I truly believe that Jaylen Walker is in line for an all-American caliber season. I said in my bold predictions a couple weeks ago that I believe Jaylen Walker is going to hit double-digit sacks for Georgia, which will make him the very first player in the Kirby Smart era to go over 8.5 sacks. Not even double digits, we're talking 8.5. The high water mark was 8.5 in 2020 by Azeez Ojulari. I think that Jaylen Walker is going to clear that and clear it comfortably. Again, I think that he is going to have an all-American caliber season this year for the Georgia Bulldogs, and that's not really surprising to me. I just need to see him be on the field more consistently, and in this huge week one matchup, give our coaches credit. They found a way to make that happen, and the dude himself delivered. All right, next up here, let's go back to the offense. Carson Beck, who I still believe is the best quarterback in the country. I would not trade him for anyone in the country right now. And I thought he was good. He was good on Saturday, some really good things, kept us on schedule, didn't turn the football over, made good decisions with the football, and actually did some really good things with his legs, with that underrated athleticism, being able to kind of create when there's pressure in the pocket, which is not something he was great at last year, but able to pick up first downs with his legs, extend drives, give us chances to continue moving on down the field, march down the field, trying to score points. But I will say, I also don't think Carson was as sharp as usual. Now, Carson's a killer, man. He has answers for everything that a defense is going to throw at him. He is an elite processor, pre-snap, post-snap. I mean, when the guy sees you playing off coverage, giving us what I call the gimme throws, he's going to take them like 10 times out of 10. And he took a lot of those in this game, and that's effective. So what it did eventually is it forces Clemson's corners to have to come up more because they were trying to play soft coverage, guys. Now, Clemson played a little bit differently on Saturday defensively than they had most of last year. Now, they were still very aggressive up front. They like to bring a lot of pressure. They twist. They stunt up front on the defensive line. They did all of that. But last year, they would do that, and they would get up in press coverage because they had guys like Sheridan Jones and Nate Wiggins on the outside that they trusted to put on islands. Well, they don't have those guys. They're actually banged up in the secondary right now. So, yeah, they were still bringing a lot of pressure, doing all the games and the twist up front, but they were playing off. They were giving us a lot of cushion on the outside, which is different from what they did last year because they clearly don't trust those corners the way they trusted the guys they had a year ago. And Carson was just taking what they gave him. I know people want to call Carson a check down master. Like, why is that an insult? You take what the defense is giving you instead of forcing the football. Like, wouldn't we have a far bigger issue if he was forcing the football into those situations? No, you take what they give you, you keep the chains moving, you force them to respond by eventually coming up and reducing that cushion, and then you hit them vertically over the top. And Carson did a really good job early in that game of taking what they were giving us and eventually being able to take advantage of that later in the game and kind of just pulling away offensively. But I will say, again, there were two plays that, and look, I'm being nitpicky here, man, because this is how highly I think of Carson. I'm somewhat downgrading his performance because of two throws, because they were just uncharacteristic of Carson Beck. I think there were two touchdown passes that the guy missed. In the first half, there's an RPO to Colby Young. It's one thing that Clemson was doing, and people were very frustrated with what our screen game early in the game, which we'll get to later on. I think that was actually the way I would have approached it too. But they were their safeties were triggering on run action like quickly. They were flying, screaming downhill. And eventually we said, okay, fine, do that. We're going to RPO those guys at the third level. We're going to RPO those safeties like RJ Mickens. When they come screaming off play action, we're just going to pull it and throw behind their head, and we've got big plays right there. And we did exactly that on the goal line. They were ended up having to settle for a field goal, but Carson just barely threw it past Colby Young's outstretched fingertips. But if he brings that down a couple inches, that's a touchdown. Colby Young is a contested catch master. That's a touchdown. And there was a play, I think it was also later in the first half, but it was Dominic Lovett, where Dom was on a crossing route, and he had a step or two on the defender in man coverage, chasing him from the field, or I'm sorry, from the boundary. And Carson, if he puts it out in front of Lovett on that throw, which Carson does like 9 times out of 10, I think that Lovett catches it, and I think he turns up field on the sideline there and probably scores. I can't say definitively, but I think there's a very strong chance that he would have scored on that play that was right in front of me. I was on the Sky Bridge there in the stadium, and I feel very strong that he would have scored on that play. Carson just put it on his back shoulder instead of his front shoulder, and it was just a little too far behind Lovett for him to make the catch on the move there. So, like, we're talking, like, again, I'm splitting hairs here, man. Like, we're nitpicking, but I expect Carson Beck to hit those throws because I've seen him do that time and time again. His accuracy in the intermediate range especially is one of the things that makes him so lethal. And there were 2 throws that I think were touchdowns. And like, we got away with it against Clemson because we were just that much better. But when we're on the road at Alabama, in Austin, in Oxford, you've got to make those throws. And I feel comfortable and confident that Carson will do that because I've seen him do it time and time and time again. But I don't think that was the sharpest we've seen Carson Beck. I think he probably left those 2 touchdowns on the board. But here's the thing. Even though Carson was not as sharp as I kind of expect him to be, he was still light years better than the quarterback on the other side. Cade Klubnik, man, is just not it. And like Clemson fans, they got so spoiled with Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, and they thought DJU was the next guy, right? Well, they played us in 2021. They realized real quickly, oh, no, he's not that guy. Well, and then they come into 2022. They say, oh, it's all right, man. It's all right. It's all good because, if DJU is the guy, we got this other guy, this hotshot 5-star Cade Klubnik. He'll step right in. He's going to be the next guy. Well, I mean, I think we have enough of a sample size now, guys. He's not that guy. He's not. He's fine. He's okay-ish at best, but he's not the guy. You're not winning a national championship with Cade Klubnik. You're just not. You might not win an ACC title with him. He's got to improve. But I've seen enough from him now to say, like, I kind of think this is just who he is. Great physical tools. Just doesn't have. I don't want to say he's not saying he's a dumb kid. He just doesn't process as quickly. He's late on a lot of throws. He doesn't make good decisions, and like he gets sped up with pressure in his face, and he's just erratic with his accuracy. So Carson might not have been the best version of Carson that we've seen, but still so much better than the quarterback on the other side, which is a big part of why we won that game. And Klubnik, 18-29, 142 yards, 4.9 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Carson, I mean, man, what a tough game for Carson. 23 of 33, 70% passing, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interception. So again, I know I'm being hard on Carson here, but when you leave 2 touchdowns on the board there, I got to say, like, you're not as sharp as maybe I've seen Carson in the past. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Number 5 on my top 10 thoughts from this game against Clemson. The interior defensive line especially, but the defensive line at large, absolute warriors. And there's 3 guys that I really want to like pinpoint here. I want to spotlight them. Nazir Stackhouse at the 0 tech, Christian Miller at the 3 tech, and TID, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins at the 5 tech. Those 3 guys. Stackhouse, 33 snaps, TID, 35 snaps, Christian Miller, 29 snaps. We had no one else, especially on the interior, play more than 8 snaps. And Mike Kell, you can say that he played some jack linebacker. Like, what do you classify Mike Kell as? I don't really know. But outside of those guys, you can throw Mike Kell in there, fine. No one else played more than 8 snaps on our defensive line. Those guys played a ton of snaps in this football game, and they had to, because we are thin right there with all the injuries that we're dealing with right now, with no Jordan Hall, with Warren Brinson playing 3 snaps and going out for the rest of the game. We'll see what's going on there. And then Xavier McLeod out. Jamal Jarrett still very much a work in progress, trying to get that guy up to speed. We have some really talented young guys, some freshmen like Nazir Johnson, but they're freshmen right now. So those guys had to place those snaps, and they had to play at a high level against a veteran Clemson offensive line and a really good running back. And they did, man. Not only did they play all those snaps, but they responded in a big way and played exceptionally well for this Georgia defense, holding Clemson to 47 yards rushing, just a little over 2 yards per rush with all those guys out. Unbelievable effort by those warriors on the defensive line, man. And look, those guys played incredible, but that brings me to my next point here, number 6. As well as they played, we've got to get healthy on the defensive line. Either we've got to get healthy on the defensive line, or these young guys have got to get ready to play more snaps, because that's not sustainable. Playing those guys, playing Stackhouse and TID and Miller as many snaps as they had to play against Clemson, I don't know if that's sustainable long-term moving forward. Now, Jordan Hall should be back another month-ish or so. Xavier McLeod, I still am not exactly sure what's going on there. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later, but we don't really know. And Warren Brinson, I hope it's not the Achilles, because that's what he was dealing with earlier. And like Kirby said in the preseason, it's Achilles tendonitis. And I said at the time, y'all, I've dealt with Achilles tendonitis very recently. I like to I do marathons, half marathons. I was training for a marathon last winter, about 3 weeks before the marathon in February. I came up with some Achilles tendonitis, and man, like I was out of commission for like 3 months, and I tried to deal with that. I went to a bunch of different doctors and did a bunch of rehab, everything I possibly could to treat that as aggressively as I could. Look, these guys are younger than me, so they heal faster. But I'm just saying, if it's truly Achilles tendonitis, that's not something you come back from in like 2 weeks. That's something that's going to linger the rest of the season. So I hope to God it's not really that, and it's just something else. We'll see. I don't know. But that's a concern there. We've got to get healthy or get those young guys ready to play, because we need depth on the defensive line. When you play the Texases of the world, the Alabamas of the world, the Ole Misses of the world, you've got to have depth on the interior of that defensive line. And right now we don't. Right now we do not. So we got to get those guys up to speed or get healthy really, really fast. All right, next up here, my seventh of my top 10 thoughts of this game against Clemson. Inside linebacker play, man, dramatically improved from what we saw a year ago. And look, I took some heat from people out there because I did not think that guys like C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson played as well as I think like the average Georgia fan thought they did last year. Now, they played really well relative to the fact that they were true freshmen. But they were true freshmen. They didn't play at an extremely high level for us last year. C.J. Allen played lights out against Ole Miss in that first start. If he played like that every other game, the guy would have been incredible, absolutely. But he didn't play like that consistently. At times, he was a liability, and you get it, man. Like the talent was there. We saw the flashes. The physical tools were there, and they were ahead mentally from where your typical freshman is. There's a lot that's put on those guys in our defense, but they were playing most of the time a step slow, a little hesitant in their reads, and that hurt us from time to time. And they had really poor eye discipline at times. Auburn, C.J. Allen killed us at times, all the misdirection that Auburn was throwing at him in that game. And Tech, the same thing, both him and Raylan Wilson. And then you had, Pop Dumas Johnson was banged up a lot last year, so was Smile Munn. And really, I don't think Smile was ever really healthy. So our inside linebacker play, like sure, our defensive line play wasn't the same as it was in 21 and 22, no doubt. I don't think our inside linebacker play was anywhere near what it was in those seasons as well. But what I saw on Saturday against Clemson was our inside linebacker play getting back to the standard that we expect from that inside linebacker room. And I've said all along throughout the offseason that I think we don't have a ton of experience in that room, but in terms of just like sheer talent in a room, I think you'd argue our inside linebackers, it's the most talented room on the entire roster. We just had to get those guys more experience. But I thought they played exceptionally well. And I expected C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson, now with all the experience they got under their belts last year, that they went through the fire last year, man. They made those mistakes. They took their bumps last year. But those guys were playing at a different level on Saturday. And that's what I kind of saw at practice. I want to see it live in a real game, but they weren't thinking too much. There was no more hesitation. It was see ball, get ball, read, react. They were flying around the field. Eye discipline was not an issue for them. They were solid in coverage as well. I thought Smile and Raylan Wilson actually played the best of the bunch. I thought CJ played well too, did some good things. So I thought Jaylen Walker, when he played inside linebacker, also played well. But the inside linebacker play was, I think, dramatically improved from what we saw a year ago. So if we can get improvement on the defensive line, if we can just start to get healthy there, and you couple that with the improved play by the inside linebacker room, with all the talent we have in that room, the depth that we have in that room, I think that's a really strong sign for the Georgia rush defense taking a step back towards closer to what it was in 2022 and 2021, where last year we gave about 30 yards more rushing per game last year than we had in the previous 4 years on average. We were 113 yards per game, but still, it was top 30-ish nationally, top 25-ish nationally. So relatively speaking, still really good, just not to Georgia standard. And if we want to get back to a national title, as I've said all offseason, we've got to get back to playing Georgia rush defense, and we saw signs of that. I mean, again, holding, I think a good Clemson run game, they can't really threaten you with vertically with the pass, but holding a good Clemson run game, and a lot of times with even numbers in the box, holding them to under 50 yards rushing, to a little over 2 yards per rush, big time effort, and that's the defensive line, that's the linebackers, second level, third level, all the above guys, they all played fantastic. But speaking of the secondary, number 8 here on my list of my top 10 thoughts coming out of this game against Clemson, who is the odd man out in the secondary? So one of the surprises for me, at least, when I saw the lineup out there for our defense for that first snap of the game was no Jaylen Walker, who's a guy that I've been very high on going back to last year. And I think this guy could be one of the best players in our entire defense. I think that highly of him. I know our coaching staff thinks that highly of him. But he wasn't out there. So I'm like, what's going on? Is he suspended? Like, is he another one of the guys? Like, I go, what's happening here? Then you find out there's an injury, got banged up, or it looks like he maybe tweaked a hammy or something, a soft tissue injury early last week in the lead up to the game against Clemson. And so that caused us to have to move guys around the secondary. So we moved Malachi Starks, who's been in the system now for 3 years, is probably our best defensive player. I think him and Jaylen Walker, you throw Michael Williams in there as well. But, I mean, Kirby said it. I totally agree. I mean, Malachi could be he's our best safety, could be our best star defender probably, could probably be our best corner. He's just that kind of guy. I mean, the freakish interceptions, I mean, he just makes that stuff look routine. Absolutely insane. There's a reason why he's a first-team All-American. But his versatility and experience in our system, allowing him to slide up and play star, moving Dan Jackson over to his safety spot, and then inserting KJ Bolden starting lineup. And all three of those guys played exceptionally well, especially KJ in his first game against a really good Clemson opponent. And then you got Jaylen Walker. So somebody's not going to start, right? Is it going to be Jaylen Walker? Like, does our coaching staff just love what they saw on Saturday? And you say, okay, Jaylen Walker doesn't have to come off the bench, or maybe there's going to be some sort of rotation there. I don't know. Or do you go back to our original lineup, which is what was going to be coming this season with Malachi and Dan Jackson, and you got Jaylen Walker at star, and then you work in KJ Bolden with Dan Jackson. Is that what we're going to go back to once we get Jaylen Walker healthy? How long is Janelle going to be out? If Janelle's out an extended period of time, if he's out for a couple of games, and then we kind of get into a rhythm with this defensive lineup that we saw against Clemson, well, maybe he's the odd man out. But again, he's so talented. He's the prototype for us at that star position. I think a lot of it might come down to who do the coaches think needs to be on the field more? Is it Jaylen Walker, or is it KJ Bolden? I think that's what it might come down to. If KJ keeps playing well and keeps improving game after game after game, if Janelle continues to miss a couple games, well, maybe it's just too difficult for them to keep KJ off the field. And now Janelle is kind of the odd man out. Maybe that's the case. Or maybe Janelle's just shown them so much over the past year and a half, like we've got to get this guy in the game. We feel better with Malachi playing his more natural position at safety. We trust Dan Jackson back there. We're going to have KJ come on the field, but he's just maybe not going to start and play as many snaps. I think he played all but like 2 snaps against Clemson. So I don't know how that's going to shake out. I don't think our coaching staff knows right now, but that's one of my biggest questions on the defense side of the ball moving forward, because all those guys can't start. One of them is going to have to either come off the bench or just not play. I don't know what that's going to look like. And I think that's a big storyline moving forward the next couple of weeks. And then number 9, Monroe Freeling. Didn't play a ton of snaps. I think he played 16 snaps total, played a little left, a little right tackle, more right tackle. But Monroe Freeling, I thought, when he was out there, small sample size-ish, sure, I thought he played really well. And if he strings together a couple more performances like that, he might well just take that right tackle job from Xavier Truss. And it's no shot on Xavier Truss. He's lost some weight, got his body in better shape, and he looked better at right tackle than he did at times last year. I don't think he's really a natural tackle. I think he's more of a natural guard, but we're just loaded on the interior right now, especially with the way that Tate Ratledge and Dylan Fairchild are playing. So I don't know what to make of this, because Truss is a 6th-year guy. He's got all the experience in the world. But as I've maintained all offseason, Monroe Freeling physically has more of an upside. He's more of a natural tackle. He's got the footwork, he's got the athleticism, he's got more length than what you see from Xavier Truss. So if we see Monroe Freeling continue to play at that level, and look, Pro Football Focus, take it with a grain of salt. Their grades, there's not much transparency there, but there's a pretty wide gap between their grade for Monroe Freeling and their grade for Xavier Truss, which kind of backs up what I saw on tape when I went back and watched on the rewatch. But Monroe Freeling was our highest graded offensive lineman against Clemson, according to Pro Football Focus, with a 76.7 offensive grade. And then Xavier Truss, on the flip side, was our lowest graded offensive lineman with a 51.7 grade, according to Pro Football Focus. So if that continues to trend in that direction, it might not be too long before Monroe Freeling takes that starting job from Xavier Truss. I think Truss will always play, but he might be that guy who's playing in a rotation instead of starting, playing a little bit left tackle, a little bit right tackle, maybe playing that Monroe Freeling role that Monroe played in this game against Clemson. But I thought it was really encouraging what I saw from Monroe Freeling. And again, I've maintained that this guy's ceiling is just far higher than what Xavier Truss has. Truss has the experience, but the ceiling, the physical upside is Monroe Freeling. It's just a matter of how quickly he gets up to speed, continues to get his body in shape, because he was light when he came to Georgia, came into the college level, but he's put on good weight, gotten stronger, and if he can continue to do that and move in the right direction, I think before the season's over, he very well could take that job from Xavier Truss. And then finally, my last big thought on this Georgia-Clemson matchup, I saved this for last, because I didn't want to get too far off the rails here. I know there was a lot of criticism of Mike Bobo and the offensive game plan, certainly in the first half. And look, guys, I get it. We had 145 yards total offense in the first half. I think 4.5 yards per play in the first half. Only 6 points. Only managed 2 touchdowns. So when the numbers are like that, it warrants criticism. I understand that. But I honestly didn't have much of an issue with our offensive game plan coming out in the first half. I know people are frustrated with the lack of shots down the field, with the lack of play action vertical shots. I understand that people were frustrated with the quantity of screens that we ran in that game. I understand people were frustrated, they kept running into the teeth of that defense. But I think you have to understand, guys, let's go back to what I said in the preview episode last week. We were never going to win this game in the first half. What I mean by that is we were not going to go out there and put up like 30 points on Clemson in the first half on that defense. They're just too good on defense, man. Yeah, our staff had too much respect for them, and I get it because they are that good. Absolutely. What we need to do in the first half was set ourselves up to pull away and win it in the second half, which is really what I think our game plan was designed to do. Look, that Clemson defensive front, guys, I truly believe is the best defensive front that we are going to play all year. But the problem for them is that they don't have a ton of depth. Their starters up there, whether it's TJ Parker, Peter Woods, DeMonte Capehart, Page, those guys are elite. And those guys are the second unit for that Clemson defense last year. And then you had guys like Rico Roro and Tyler Davis, Xavier Thomas. That was their first unit. So their depth was off the charts up front last year. They're just rolling in elite guy after elite guy, 5-star to 5-star. That's not the case this year. The guys are the second team guys last year. They're now the first team guys, and they're elite, but they don't have the same caliber guys behind them that they were last year. So they don't have the depth, okay? So what we needed to do was try to wear those guys out. And we get to the point in the second half where they're just worn down. They don't have the depth. That's where our superior depth would take over. And that's where I felt we would pull away from Clemson in this game. Late third quarter, early fourth quarter, pulled away, which is pretty much what happened, guys. Look, I know that you want to put up a bunch of points early in the first half. And of course, that's ideal, but it's not always realistic when you're playing a team like that. And look, my big critique, and I will allow this, my critique is that I think we should have gone play action more early in the first half, because again, as I said earlier, their safeties were triggering hard on run action. I just honestly don't think our coaches have felt like we could consistently block them up front when they were still really fresh in the first half, because they are elite guys and they bring a lot of pressure. I don't think they felt that we could give Carson enough time for those slower developing play action plays down the field to actually open up. So if a team like Clemson on defense plays as aggressively as they do, yes, you can try to take advantage of that with play action shots down the field, but you have to be able to block them long enough. And most teams can't really do that, guys. So our solution was we're going to screen them. And that's what I said last week on the preview episode. I would screen them to death. I think that was the quote. Quote, screen them to death, because a couple of reasons. Number one, it slows down their pass rush. They have elite pass rushers. It slows that down, makes them think. Number two, they don't have depth, right? So what's one way that you can wear them out faster? Throw screens and force those big, fat defensive linemen to go chase the ball all over the field. We did that early in the game, right? And we also, number three, we have a bunch of players at receiver this year, at running back as well, that are really dangerous and dynamic with the ball in their hands in space. So why not get them the football in that way? So I think it was a combination of all those things. Yes, I would have liked to have seen us take more shots downfield early in the game, but we didn't. What we did instead was, like, when they were triggering like that, instead of taking the longer developing play action, we were just going RPOs, and we had some success. Those, again, I think one of them should have been a touchdown to Colby Young, as I laid out earlier, that Carson just barely missed, a little too high for him. But let's also give the coaching staff credit in the second half. They came out, they realized, all right, like, we're wearing them down. We're kind of doing what we're having some success. We're just not able to, like, put it in the end zone. We're not able to get that kill shot. So let's actually try to get the kill shot. And we went for some more play action shots on the field. But I think it was helpful that the Clemson defensive front was at that point starting to get worn down, right? And there's no coincidence, guys, that in the second half, we absolutely opened the floodgates against that Clemson defensive front. That it was the fourth quarter. Really, it was the fourth quarter where we really, really unloaded on them in the run game, the 40-yard run that Nate Frazier broke off, obviously the big touchdown catch and run that London Humphreys had. That's where we started to hit those bigger explosive plays. I think a big part of that was their defense was worn down because they don't have that depth. And also, the other part of that is, like, I think, their spirit's kind of broken when they'd done all they could to keep the team in the game. The offense just could not do their part once again. But I do think the way that we attacked them early in the game with all those screens and run the football, and that's one of the things I said in the preview episode as well, guys, is, look, they're probably going to win some reps. They're that good up front. So even if we get stuffed early in the game, you cannot abandon the run. You got to keep pounding, and wear them down. Also, they are apt to give up explosive plays on the ground because they're so aggressive attacking line of scrimmage that they get a lot of body on line of scrimmage. And if you just break out of that initial line and you kind of spit that out, you got a big play. And we saw that in the fourth quarter. So I think it really all ended up playing out well, guys. And, like, I know that it was frustrating the first half at times, but the end results speak for themselves. Almost 450 yards total offense, 34 points against what I think might well end up being the best defense that we play all throughout the regular season. So sometimes, even though it might not end up resulting in points right away, sometimes our coaching staff is playing the long game. And I think that was the right approach with this Clemson defense and their lack of depth. But all right, guys, those are my top 10 thoughts in this big week 1 victory by Georgia over the Clemson Tigers, 34-3, now getting them 447 yards to 189 yards, making a statement in the process that, as I said earlier, I think that Georgia is still very much the best team in the country. It's just a matter of, can we play like it on a week-by-week basis? And that's what remains to be seen. But we'll be here to cover it all for you guys throughout the rest of the 2024 season. So thanks again, guys, for being here. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe to this channel right now for a lot more content just like this. Like the video, comment, let me know what you guys think about the game and how it played out and what your biggest takeaways, what your biggest thoughts were coming out of that big win over Clemson. But thank you for being here, guys. I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs!
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.